6 weeks from Election Day, folks. The breakdown starts now. Welcome to the breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson in Florida, safe right now, for now, as we all know. There's a huge hurricane barreling down on the state of Florida, and we're hoping everyone is heeding the evacuation warnings and getting the hell out of Dodge and stays safe. But glad you are safe so far, Mr. Wilson. Are you out of the cone of potential disaster?
I am well out of the cone as of right now. It has taken during the day today. It has broken a little more east-northeast, and it was going northeast, but now it's a little east-northeast. It's going to turn in, it looks like as of now, as a Cat 3 south of Tampa, between Tampa and Sarasota, and go at a diagonal up through the center of the state. It is great that it's not hitting Tampa, since my elderly parents apparently did not want to leave. But it is still going to strike Sarasota, and it looks like it's going to strike up to the middle of the state. It could still do enormous damage. They are doing mandatory evacuations now, the no fooling kind of evacuations.
Yep.
Where it's, get out of your house. It's going to be 12 feet underwater tomorrow.
Listen, my family lived in the Florida Keys for 20 years, and I spent some time down there. Yeah. I have evacuated many a time, and I understand the stress of all of that, and it's tough, and the obstinance of locals who don't want to leave. Like, that is such a Florida thing. They have hurricane parties, for God's sakes, folks. Like, if you don't live in Florida, you may not understand this. It's a weird cultural thing to add to the litany of other weird cultural things in your home state. But the hurricane party thing, it's almost like we're tough, it's not going to break us thing. But it's just stupid. It's stupid and dangerous. And
also, every time in Florida there's a hurricane, the public safety folks across the state have to send out the message saying, please don't shoot the hurricane. It doesn't help.
Oh, God.
Because there literally are people in every hurricane who will go out and shoot the hurricane.
It just makes you wonder sometimes. But
I'm like I said, the worst case scenario, early in the week, it was taking a beeline right for me.
Yeah, we saw.
The worst case scenario, honestly, was it was going to hit St. Petersburg and Tampa. Highly populated, very, very low water table around there, low ocean depths around there. So it would have pushed a lot of water very quickly.
Right. Wouldn't have taken much.
And the flood control system in Tampa can handle about a 1.5 foot storm surge. They were predicting 2 days ago 5 to 8. It's higher now.
Right.
So it's a terribly dangerous storm. Folks, if you are in the Sarasota, Bradenton, Nokomis area down there, or if you're further south in Naples or Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Sanibel, it's not too late. Please leave.
Yes.
Please leave. It is not too late. Get on the road. Don't drown.
Yeah, amen. My aunt lives down there, actually, in the Mayaca area. So she took off earlier today with her dogs and her cat, and she's safely at
that's exactly in that Bradenton Sarasota split down there.
Yeah, it is. So prayers to everyone down there battling Hurricane Ian. Now, on to some other things going on. Rick, it feels like it's been forever since we've been together, like calmly without someone traveling. And,
I know.
Last Thursday, it was a technical nightmare. I had a power surge. You had a dog barking.
I had a dog. Hey, the dog was charming, though.
Yeah, at least the dog was cute. It was cute. But we are back together again, and there's just a lot to get to.
There's a lot.
It really is. And 6 weeks from the midterms, it's going to go by quick. It's going to feel like forever because a million things are going to happen between now and then. But next thing you know, we're going to wake up and go, holy shit, it's election night. And, back to that, the exhilaration of 2020 again, because there's so much on the line. And I was watching Ari Melber before we came on tonight, and it's not just
Ari Melber.
Well, earlier I'm saying like that was the 5 o'clock hour. It's normally Nicole's hour, but like the normal Ari hour as I was preparing for the show. And it reminded me, because as everyone knows, I was out last week because I was in Europe for a conference. And what's happening in Europe is really frightening also. It's not just what's happening here in the US. we had Liz Cheney over the weekend talking about the threats of fascism and like what's going on in the Republican Party and what the Republicans are allowing and the dangers of some of these people running for office. And you see what's happening in Europe, particularly Italy. And this has been creeping up for a couple of years. And Italy just basically elected a female Mussolini light. And I don't say that lightly, no pun intended. Ruth Ben Ghiat, who's a friend of the show, who wrote the amazing book Strongman, she is a fascism expert. She was on Ari Melber's show tonight, basically saying that this woman, Meloni, who just got elected prime minister of Italy, is a far-right reincarnation of Mussolini, quoting the similar things that he's quoting, very savvy, very scary in what she is putting forward. This populism, nationalism crap in Italy now is reemerging.
Hey, Terry, you know how I know she's an actual fascist?
How?
Because every American conservative is suddenly head over heels about her.
Yes.
And if you call her a fascist, they lose their goddamn minds. They lose their minds.
It's insane. I mean, you have Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz and others that are saying that, oh, this is wonderful. She's great. She's a conservative. And, this is what we want here. Trying to normalize it. And that's the scary part about this. They started this shit with Viktor Orban in Hungary, and now they're moving on to this chick Meloni in Italy. And I love my beloved Italia, but this has been creeping up for several years with the Five-Star Party, this right-wing party that's been gaining ground in local elections, and now they're national elections, and this is no good, no bono in Italy. And what the Americans are doing, what American Republicans praising this woman and normalizing her, is indicative of what we're facing, the threat that we face here in America too, because you have people like Carrie Lake and Blake Masters and Doug Mastriano and others who are putting on these faces of fascism and of this insanity that's not democratic. And they have way too much support, Rick, for my comfort level here. These are closer races than they should be.
Yes, they are.
And these are dangerous lunatics.
Tara, we are in a moment globally where the appeal of the strongman, the appeal of the authoritarian, the appeal of the dictator is enormously powerful. And for the first time in our history, that appeal is amplified by a hyperkinetic social media environment where terrible ideas that ordinary people would hear in the past and say, no, I reject that. That's outrageous. We're not going to do that. That's not an American republic. That's not a democratic small d principle. We're not going to do that. Now, these things are jet propelled through the political ecosystem by social media and by things like Fox. And there's nothing to countervail them. There's not a media outlet out in the world now that is fighting essentially for democracy every day.
We are.
Well, we are. But we do some streaming and some podcasting, folks. We do our best at it. And we do our best to keep people informed. But in the media space, there's almost nothing to compete now against the rising tide of authoritarianism.
Yeah. And
Meloni she's an example of this.
Perfect example of it.
Come here. You get Carrie Lake. You know why Carrie Lake's having a breakthrough with Republicans in the world? It's not because she's beautiful, although that helps being a candidate, no lie. It's because she says what's in their id, what's deep in their subconscious. She says the things that they want to hear. We'll blow up the federal government. We'll set up armed guards at the border. We'll kill illegal. This whole stack.
Same phenomenon with what's her name in Alaska, Sarah Palin. It was the same thing. They had a pretty face with really ugly stuff coming out of it. They gave a permission structure to these people to say the quiet parts out loud.
That's right.
That's exactly the same
folks,
thing.
That is why, again, please, Democrats, please, for the love of God, do not think because you had some good news in the last 4 weeks that this race is done. It is closer than you think. Polls tend to undersample Republican voters for a lot of reasons. We can go through that. It's a whole nother show. Tara knows we've been to this rodeo a lot.
Indeed.
And please check your voter registration. If you are not registered, you still have time in almost every state. If you are registered, please make sure your party affiliation is still the same thing, because it might need to be. In a lot of states, it's been changed. And please request your absentee ballot early, fill it out early, get it back, make sure it was returned, follow up. Your personal responsibility for this is something I cannot overemphasize. I cannot overemphasize it.
Absolutely. Recently, I think it was the New York Times just came out either today or yesterday with a report card. They did a report in conjunction with another organization showing the ranking the states of where it's most difficult to vote versus where it's easiest to vote. It was very interesting, the results there.
We'll post that up on the
we should post that on our
socials for everybody.
On our social, because it's check your state. Check your state. You'd be surprised where some of the most difficult places are, and it's not all red states. So pay attention, as my grandfather always said. We must pay attention to what's going on here, because the other side, this is a war of who's more motivated and more organized.
You bet.
And so,
100%.
That's why we do what we do. Speaking of Carrie Lake and Liz Cheney and all of this, and in conjunction with this conversation, Liz Cheney over the weekend, she was saying that we have to do our part to make sure that people who believe in what election deniers are saying, and in people who want to tear down the republic, do not get into power. And she said people like Lake and Mastriano, they're dangerous. And she said that they're calling Liz Cheney a Democrat, which goes to show you how asinine the thought process is here. But right now, Republicans are only interested in basically undermining democracy, because all these people are election deniers. And that is like number one, the priority of all of these crazies that are running for office. So we have a rapid response concerning Carrie Lake.
It's funny. I looked this Italian Ms. Maloney up. Everything was, she's a fascist, she's a racist, she's this, she's that. And I thought, wow, this is somebody who I can relate to, because they're doing the same thing about me. And it makes me realize that if they're not calling you all of these slurs, if they're not attacking you, then you're probably not truly representing the people of your country.
They're wearing it with a badge of valor.
My question is, what country?
Right. Exactly.
That's not American.
Exactly. And that's the message that Democrats should be putting out there. Don't necessarily call them fascists and all that, because most people don't know what that means. They just don't know. And the right has done a really good job of co-opting that and turning it around and making it just like they did right there, and making it some type of badge of valor, like they're victims now because, they're calling us that, so that must mean we're doing something right. No. They need to call them out on what it is they actually believe and say, how does this align with American democracy? How does this align with American values? Put them on the freaking hot seat and force them to answer it. Do not let them turn it around.
When you make them own their evil, it's even more effective than making them own their crazy. And they have plenty of crazy.
Right.
They don't like to own that either.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Did we have a last week?
Did what happen?
Don't we have a last week in the Republican Party?
We do. I was going to get to that because I
wasn't rushing you.
That's all right. Okay. I wanted to make sure that we got to some of what's happening in Italy and all of that first, because there is a through line here with all of that. Right. And now that we have gotten through all of it, now we can do last week in the Republican Party, because it is Tuesday. Roll it.
If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it.
There should never have been separation between church and state, saith the Lord.
Why not more details in this plan?
Shannon, there are ample details. So number one, an economy that's strong.
Wow. You've seen the ads attacking me. They're all lies. Next would be saying I hate children and puppies.
White supremacy, which, I condone. I condemn.
Googled a picture of his assistant. She's a very attractive girl, so I started looking even more.
There are two naked people, and they are acting out a sexual act. So in multiple different sexual acts, Do you want me to send you some so you can see them?
Virginia's a border state.
So every state is a border state.
President Biden will let any illiterate gangbanger, oftentimes with drugs, come right on in.
His mission is to get this book into every school board, and every library in America.
As happens to a former president, et cetera, et cetera. I hate to use the word former because I have a lot of problems with what happened.
You're familiar with 911. It was in your backyard, but on 911, we lost 3,000 Americans.
We need to have something like a white uprising.
Once injected with the so-called vaccine, you become connected to the Internet of Things, and you can be mind controlled by artificial intelligence.
I said I tried to rid the state of Minnesota of drugs by doing them all.
This White House press secretary is terrible. And yet we won't talk about it in the media or in Washington, D.C. because she's black and lesbian.
I think they took my will. I found out yesterday. I said, where is it?
Am I in it?
I think they took my will. Could cause a lot of problems.
No.
Literally, I walked onto a plane. Somebody yells, "Let's go, Brandon." It was kind of funny thing. Within a minute, the whole plane is chanting USA, USA, USA.
Elect Trump one more time and then stop having elections.
And let's go in that helicopter and go hog hunting. Enter to win now.
Oh my God.
Now listen, I do want to say one thing. I hate feral hogs. I hate feral pigs. They're terrible. They're a scourge. I would not go anywhere near anything to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene in a helicopter, or with Marjorie Taylor Greene having a firearm anywhere near me.
Good God.
I don't trust her. I don't trust her muzzle discipline. I don't trust her moral discipline. And I wouldn't trust myself to go, oh my God, your seatbelt came undone.
Which muzzle discipline? We already know she has no discipline with this muzzle.
Yeah, on that muzzle.
A friend of mine, a reporter, is heading down to Georgia to do some coverage of her election, all that. And I said, good luck, brother. Stay safe down there.
Have fun storming the castle.
Have fun with that. So many things in that just really irritated me, particularly, Rick Grenell going after the White House press secretary. Karine is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. I had a chance to spend a lot of time with her on panels in CNN over the years, and you don't always have to agree. I don't always have to agree with
half a dozen panels together in the last.
Yeah, and you know what? It is historic. She's the first Black female press secretary, and Rick Grenell, who got his job completely unqualified for it, has some audacity going after her, saying that she's terrible and no one can talk about it because she's gay and lesbian. Like, fuck off, Rick Grenell. He got both of his jobs in the Trump administration. He was completely unqualified for, and he's got the audacity to talk about somebody else. He needs to just go somewhere.
Rick Grenell is one of those guys who absolutely knows better.
Of course.
And at some point he stopped faking and started buying into the whole bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a stupid guy, but he's decided he's going to be an evil guy.
Yeah. And it's, it's just infuriating. So anyway, I just want to mention that. Something else that I wanted to mention was what's going on with the immigration. So we saw during that last week in the Republican Party, there is a concerted effort, a unified message coming out of the Republican Party going after immigration. Shocker, right? We already know this. Now everyone knows that I am a border security hawk. I worked on this issue in Capitol Hill for 7 years. Sure. I was very involved with the Border Patrol, and there are a lot of problems with our border security and our immigration policy. However, what Ron DeSantis and Abbott are doing is absolutely despicable. They're playing with people's lives. And Rick, you had a great hit tonight on Ari Melber talking about this. And it's just, again, playing on fears of people and taking advantage and demagoguing this issue and messing around with people's lives. Now, are there a lot of people that come across that are claiming asylum that are not legit asylum seekers? Yes, there is a complete abuse of that system. However, what has happened with these flights, of these folks? These were legitimate asylum seekers from Venezuela, right, as you pointed out. They do have a legal right, and they have a legitimate case for asylum. And what DeSantis is doing, that big expose on him, we were talking about it off camera. It's just unbelievable. And
read it, folks.
Please, it's in Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair. Holy guacamole.
And this whole thing is just not only just the whole Ron DeSantis just cabal. But what he's doing, even with those flights, that there is some corruption going on there, questionable
Of course there
payments,
is.
and who he paid to fly them a couple $1 million as a donor, and all of this stuff. It is really unsavory.
It should shock no one that
Right.
there's corruption involved in the state of Florida in government.
Right.
Because, and I tell people this all the time, they never believe me. Pound for pound, Florida makes New Orleans look like Bern, Switzerland. Okay. Florida is the most corrupt state in America by an order of magnitude. You cannot imagine the degree of outright corruption in this state, where there's like outright criminality at a level that if someday the federal government, the FBI, would decide to investigate it, they would round up 50% of the people who live within 5 blocks of me in my neighborhood, who are lobbyists who make millions of dollars every year and who are lavishly, insanely corrupt.
Yeah, I mean, for a while there, New York and New Jersey were right behind you. We had a lot going on there.
We're like in the pros here.
Yeah, Florida is a whole nother level on a lot of things, and
a
whole nother level. But what's so interesting about all of this is, and we have been saying this for over a year now, Rick, this internecine warfare that is beginning between Team Trump and Team Desantis is about to pop off. I've got the popcorn. I'm ready. They are about to do battle. And all of these stories about DeSantis, don't think that they were not planted by Trump world. They see the threats.
100%, Tara.
They see the threat, and they're trying to take them out.
57%.
Yes.
Guys, let me tell you something. We have been stoking this fight with them for a year because we knew what would happen eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Ron DeSantis' ego would start writing checks that his political acumen couldn't cash.
His
Trump's ego would get more and more fragile and pissy. We knew what to do. We did it because we believe that either one of those guys is a very substantial threat to American democracy in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
We're always trying to think ahead for you. Always trying to play the game out a few turns farther out in the future than your average super PAC might consider, since your average super PAC doesn't plan past lunch.
That's right. There's nothing average about the Lincoln Project, folks, as you've noticed. It's somebody's got to do it. But pay attention to this, because this is not the last crazy story that we're going to hear about Ron DeSantis, and the fact that it came out that DeSantis said that Trump, he thinks Trump is a moron, and all the things that he says behind closed doors, how he can't stand the Freedom Caucus, and all those guys are a bunch of wackadoodles. Yeah, no kidding. This isn't news to us. We know what people say, behind closed doors about what's happening, and yet they go along with to stay in power and say what they need to in public. So we're going to continue to call them out on this, but this is about to be a bloody battle, folks, and we're here for it. What else is a bloody battle that's going on? Rick, last night you did a town hall with Maya, and you gave an update. And I think it's important for people to hear kind of more updates on what we're doing, because like we said, there ain't nothing average about Lincoln Project. It's a super PAC. And what we're doing, we have our hands in a lot of places, doing a lot of things. And we have, we have a really small staff. People have no idea that it's super PAC. Some super PACs have 50, 60 people on staff.
No.
That's not the case here, okay? We've got like a dozen, and that's about it. Plus, we have our union volunteers, which is another extraordinary.
Hardest working team in show business.
Yes.
Every single one of them, they put in more work every week, folks, than you can imagine. They could all be out in the private sector or somewhere else in politics, making more money, having an easier lifestyle, but they're in it for this mission like we are.
Yes.
And they work so damn hard. I just want to thank everybody on the team.
Absolutely. We're so
grateful. We got a hard sprint here ahead of us, but when that sprint is when we get to the end of it on election day, I'm hoping that the work that everyone on this team, from political to production to media to grassroots stuff to the union volunteers to every part of this organization can sit back and say, hey, we kept our finger on the pulse of what we needed to do in America.
Mm-hmm.
We faced up against the hardest parts of the anti-democratic movement in the country, and we defeated them. So
absolutely.
Shout out to everybody on the team here at LP tonight, and to all the volunteers who help us, and all the donors that keep us moving and keep this organization running every day, because we rely on the support of folks like you who are willing to go out and go to lincolnproject.us/donate and to join our team to help us support the work that we do. I mean, we are enormously gratified and enormously honored by your support and your trust. We put that money to work. We are doing voter contact in races in states all over the place right now. From in the key races, where as I said, democracy is on the line for 2024 and beyond.
That's right. That's Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia. Florida. We're going to be
here we go
involved in a little bit there as well. So where we are, Abe is watching in all those places. We're also watching what's happening with January 6th, because there was supposed to be a hearing tomorrow, but because of Hurricane Ian, the committee decided to postpone that. And we think, from what we hear from Hugo Lowell and others, that this may be the last hearing of this, because they got to wrap this thing up and write the report.
They got to do a report.
They do.
And the clock she is, and as you know, Tara, better than anybody, doing a committee report is not like, you can send somebody home at Friday at 5 o'clock and your book report's due on Monday.
Right.
It's a lot more. By the way, I wanted to say one other thing about the work we've been doing lately. Yeah. I don't know if you folks have seen our Doug Mastriano ad about his ties to anti-Semites and about the threat of anti-Semitism in Pennsylvania.
We showed it last Thursday.
Yep. But I want to say one thing about it. We discovered we study all the analytics of these ads. It is one of the most impactful ads of any organization, not just us. We deliver impactful ads, and it's not just the total number of views of the ad, but we're hitting 238,000 households a day right now on digital with that. It's moving the numbers in the race, and and when people watch this ad online, they watch the whole thing,
right,
all the way through, which is very important advertising, and it really reminds us that people, when you put the fight on the line and tell them what it's about, when it's about the future of democracy, when it's about whether we're going to be a country that elects a vicious, vile, anti-Semitic racist like Doug Mastriano, it really is something that's very gratifying to see how people engage with it. They share it. They're sharing the content a lot, which is a way that we are able to go out there in the world and do something that other super PACs can't do. Look, they still rely on the old model, Tara. They're like, well, we'll spend $5 million and we may move, 100,000 votes.
Yeah.
Well, we have discovered in this postmodern era, putting the resources that we have into digital distribution and into the quality of our production and our content is the secret sauce.
Yes.
We're ahead of the curve, as we tend to be, in a very positive way.
And people are watching. That's the most important part about this, is that people are watching it. A lot of times when people see political ads, they go, oh, okay, and they click off.
Right. Click.
But that's not happening here. Where our analytics show that people are watching our ads all the way through, which is a testament to the quality of your work, Rick, and of your creative team and what you guys are doing. And it's impactful. Don't let anybody else try to fool you and say, oh, no. That's why LP is award-winning and still here, going strong and continuing to churn out amazing content. And people fear us. They still fear. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of a Lincoln Project ad. Trust. Yes, facts. And that ad, by the way, is going to go on radio and play in major markets in Philly, I think Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. So key areas, it will be converted to a 30-second radio ad as well, because it's been so successful.
It's one of those reasons, and one of the reasons we're doing it, folks. Do not take anything for granted.
No, not at all.
This is a reddish and red state in most parts of that state. Do not take your foot off the gas on this thing, because if we do, we may find Doug Mastriano whipping past, or even, God forbid, that moron Oz.
Oh, that's right.
They're both closer than I want, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, well, even look at what's happening in Georgia. Herschel Walker is tied. People, listen, okay?
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker.
Come on.
Exactly. Please do better. Oh my God. Anyway, I want to do a quick update on some January 6th news, because there's some things going on here that I think people will be interested in. So just because the hearing has been not canceled, but postponed, doesn't mean there isn't stuff to talk about. So our good buddy Denver Ringelman has rankled some feathers, because he was on the committee staff doing what he does. He comes from an intelligence background. And he decided to write a book about it. So the committee members are upset. He left the committee back in April before the hearing started, but he did a lot of really good work. And Denver was a former congressman down in Virginia.
Friend of both of ours.
Friend of both of ours. His wife has a distillery. They make excellent whiskey. It's called Silverback. We're big fans. We have honey whiskey right now. We need to re-up on because my mom drank it all. She's like, my mom was like, they got something good going on here with this. I was like, I will make sure to tell Denver that. It's really good. It's Silverback Distillery. Anyway, but Denver also has a book out now, and he was on 60 Minutes, and he was talking about some of the stuff that they found. And one of the compelling pieces of information that's out there now that we hadn't heard yet was that somebody made a call from the White House to a rioter while the freaking insurrection was happening. Now, we know who the rioter is, but we don't know who was on the other end in the White House. And the point here is that, and what Denver's been saying, he was also on Ari Melber tonight. He's saying that this goes beyond just a handful of people, and it was way more premeditated, way more coordinated, and way better financed than anybody realized. And he said there's up to 40 members of Congress who were all up in this whole plot. And that is something that I don't think we've talked about enough. And I hope that the committee talks a little bit more about that. We know the handful of congressmen, but he said up to 40. That is just unfathomable that they would be involved in this.
It is one of those things. Again, Josh Hawley is out there with the big fist in the air salute to get him revved up. And then he ran like hell out of that building.
Yeah.
Trust me, there's text messages from that fucking guy.
Absolutely. And you heard that they took
sure.
that the DOJ got 24, and it was DOJ. Somebody got 24 Secret Service agents' phones. I think it was the Inspector General, I guess. So that's DOJ in that whole thing, because we already know that there was, I'm calling it a cover up. All of a sudden, all the Secret Service messages disappear when the Inspector General's looking for them in the committee. Come on, get the hell out of here. That wasn't by accident.
By the way, speaking of 1-6, I'm glad that the guy that assaulted Officer Fanone today got his ass in a deep crack.
I was just about to. I was just about to go there. In some good news about January 6th. So today, this insurrectionist bastard named Kyle Jones. Is it Kyle Jones? Kyle Young. Sorry for anybody named Kyle Jones. Kyle Young. This guy from Iowa who went to the insurrection with his 16-year-old son in tow, by the way, was in the middle of that battle at the Capitol, and he was one of the folks that was involved in assaulting Officer Fanone. Now, Officer Fanone is the one that the tough guy with the tattoos that has been very outspoken, that ended up having to retire and leave his career early as a Metropolitan Police officer as a result of his injuries. He's the one that was tased and assaulted, and they said, kill him with his own gun. That is Officer Fanone. He is a badass dude, and I'm so thankful that he has continued to speak up and not back down from these fuckers. You know what happened today in court? Today was the sentencing day for this Kyle Young. He had already pled guilty a couple months ago. It's on video. You can see it as part of the thousands of hours of video. What he did was he handed the taser to another guy who actually tased Officer Fanone. But what Kyle Young did was he held Fanone's hand, his wrist, so that he couldn't get to his gun to protect his weapon while he was being assaulted. And all this was going on, among other things. So this guy pled guilty, and the government asked for 7 years. Fanone had an opportunity today to give a witness impact statement. And he said that he hopes he got 10 years and that he hopes that he suffers. And I don't blame Officer Fanone for being angry.
Not one damn bit.
Not one bit, because all of these fuckers deserve to be thrown under the jail. And today he got 7 years. And this guy was crying on the stand saying he apologized to Officer Fanone and he'll take whatever punishment comes to him. You know what? F this guy, okay? Crocodile tears. He should have known better. You brought your freaking 16-year-old son into that melee. How dare you? That's shameful. And I'm glad that he's going away for at least 7 years. And that's federal prison, folks. You're going to serve that entire sentence. It's not like
you're going to enjoy that there, pal.
He's going to be there for 7 years. And one other thing happened in court today. These January 6 guys, man, they are just the pieces of shit. Somebody yelled to Officer Fanone, called him a piece of shit in the courtroom. And there was a stare down. Yes, there was a stare down.
course there
And
was.
bailiffs came and removed the January 6th supporter out of the room, and the judge banned them from coming back into the courtroom. I have so much respect for Officer Fanone and those guys for keeping it together, because he is constantly under attack by these bastards that try to question his patriotism and call him every name of the book in the book for protecting the Capitol that day. So I am thrilled to see that this is one of the longest sentences handed down, 7 years. Another former New York police officer
Richie
got 10.
deserved it. Karma is a bitch, and he's about to be one in prison.
Amen to that. And we have no regrets for saying any of it. None at all. So on that note, that's what I wanted to mention. Oh, and one other thing, another update that people should know, because it's in the January 6th realm. So why did January 6th happen? Well, they thought that they could manipulate the vice president because of the Electoral Count Act, having some vague parts of it here they tried to manipulate. Well, members of Congress have been trying to fix this through legislation, which is what you're supposed to do. And in the House and the Senate, they've had Electoral Count Act bills that are the Reform Act, basically, bills introduced. And in the House side, it's Liz Cheney and Zoe Lofgren who've written a bill, and they got it passed last week, but it was pretty partisan. Only 9 Republicans voted in favor of it. What it would do is that it would codify the vice president's role very specifically, that it's ceremonial only.
Ministerial.
That's right.
Ceremonial.
That's it. And instead of only needing 1 member of Congress to object to start that process, you would need 1/3 of that party members to object, to make it a lot more difficult. Well, that passed, I think, 229 to 203. The 9 Republicans that voted for it are all Republicans that are not either seeking re-election, lost their primary, or are retiring. Shocker. Then in the Senate side, there's a Senate version that is...
A lot of courage when they're out the door.
Yeah, I know. But on the Senate side, you have 11 Republicans at least, including Mitch McConnell, who support the Senate version, which is sponsored by Susan Collins and Joe Manchin, of all people. And their version is very close to the House version. The only difference is they're asking for 1/5 instead of 1/3. And so in order to object. And Mitch McConnell has said that the House version is dead on arrival in the Senate. We're going to go with the Senate version. And you know why? Because they do not want Liz Cheney to get that victory. That's all that's about. If Liz Cheney's name wasn't on that bill, it'd be a different story. But that's because they do not want her to get that victory and have that bill passed with her name on it. And that's the sole reason why. But you know what? If they get this passed, it looks like it's going to get a vote and will pass in the Senate. And we're going to get some version of an Electoral Count Act reform that makes it more difficult for a January 6th type of situation to plot like that to happen again. So I think that's good news. That's the way it should work.
I think so too.
Yes. I think we have a couple audience questions before we end the show tonight.
Before we wrap it up. Yeah.
Do you think Kevin McCarthy will be Speaker of the House? I hope to God he will not be Speaker. He posted commitment. Okay. We already know how I feel about this, Rick. I've been saying that he's not going to be Speaker of the House for months and months and months.
I will say this. Elise stepped back from the edge because I don't think she felt like she had the numbers.
Yeah.
But if I was Kevin McCarthy watching Jim Jordan, I'd get a food taster, a Kevlar vest, and an armed security guard 24/7.
Yes, indeed.
The MAGAs don't love you, Kevin. And Trump loves to humiliate people who have bowed before him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really good chance Trump says, no, Jim Jordan's more loyal to me. And that MAGA caucus that's coming in of Republicans, it's real MAGA.
It is. And there was an article about Marjorie Taylor Greene having more power than people would like, because she's basically the leader of the crazies over there in the House Freedom Caucus. There's like 40
Kevin
of them.
had her today or yesterday, whatever it was,
with the announcement,
at his commitment ceremony, even though she's a bat crap, crazy, lunatic, freak
racist
show,
conspiracy theorist.
The lead geek in the mutant parade of the Republican crazy caucus.
Yep.
But Kevin's now, well, I guess I could just make a deal with him.
Oh, please. He knows he has to kiss her ass because they can derail his speakership. And the closer the margin is, if the Republicans take over, right? The smaller the margin is, the more powerful the crazies become, because he needs every single vote. If a portion of them break off, he cannot be speaker. And they know this. They're sitting like, with their shit-eating grins waiting for him to sit there and kiss their asses to get what they want. So we can't have these people in power, folks.
It's so damn true.
And Rick, I will tell you off camera because it's off the record, but at the conference I was at in Germany, there was a certain, let's just say, friend of McCarthy's who was there, who I had an interesting conversation with, who also admitted that McCarthy is not so bright. And I will tell you off camera. Okay,
not
one more.
Sharpest tool in the drawer, folks.
No. And also, by the way, he thinks that Kevin may not get the speakership, and then it would be Jim Jordan.
Yeah, no, I think the speakership is going to be a hard-fought battle for him to get that.
But we have to make sure Republicans don't get Congress first. We're talking as if it's a fait accompli. It is not, people. There's still a chance. All right. The Lincoln Project. Do you think Ginny Thomas and Clarence Thomas will finally be held accountable for their part in the insurrection? Clarence, because he knew what his wife was doing. So, Rick.
I got some bad news for you, Amy. No,
that's right.
No, it's not going to happen.
And the reason is because a Supreme Court justice, I don't think ever in history has been impeached. No. That's the only way for a Supreme Court justice to be held accountable for anything. Either they voluntarily resign or they die. That's it.
Correct.
There is a mechanism.
There's no easy option there.
No.
To get you to the conclusion that, that he should step down or that her behavior and activities were inappropriate. You can always conclude that from the evidence, but there's no way he resigns from the court.
No.
And there's no way, frankly, that John Roberts is going to be the first guy to throw an African-American justice off the court.
Correct. That's just the political reality of it. However, we did find out that Clarence Thomas, in the news this week, did not disclose that his wife made $700,000 or something like that on his financial.
What is she being paid $700,000 for?
Because she's Clarence Thomas's wife.
Yes, I know, but I mean, does she have like an account on Only Fascists or something?
Right. I know. And the thing about that is, like, how do you not know that your wife made $700,000? That's not just like, oops, I wasn't aware of it. Really?
Well,
I guess. I don't know. The whole situation. And she agreed to voluntarily come before the January 6th committee in a video deposition. I don't know when that's happening, but at least it's happening. So we'll see. I
predict there's going to be a lot of I take the fifth.
Yeah, probably. I mean, she had her little batshit crazy fingers in a lot of weird shit.
Remember, she thought that the Biden family was already in a barge.
Off Gitmo. That's right. Oh, yeah. Looney Tunes, these people. Anyway.
Your wife needs help.
All right. Well, that's it. I think we've had a thorough catch up today, Wilson.
We have indeed. 45-minute show.
Yes.
God bless America.
I will be back again on Thursday.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Don't forget.
And I will definitely be seeing you on Thursday because now I'm not in the dead eye of a major Cat 3-4 hurricane.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on it still because if you sneeze too hard, your internet goes out. But the plan is now that the Wilson will be with us on Thursday. But even if he isn't, don't worry, we have him covered. So we'll see you guys on Thursday, and don't forget to check out We're Speaking Tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.